Hi, and welcome to a bite-sized bat reps, where we bring you great battle reports without taking up a great deal of your time. Okay, so we're back with By Fire and Sword Deluge, and I was lucky enough to get one of the new scenarios, so it's kind of cool. You can get a chance to see how that plays out in the game. For the forces, this is what I decided to bring this time. I went all veteran raiders and no infantry at all. And this is actually the list I used at the Villanov tournament for 2015. You know, I took this list not because I think it's a particularly amazing list. It has some glaring weaknesses with, for example, the lack of infantry, but I just really enjoy playing it. It's very resilient to damage. It has a lot of armored guys. It can hit really hard, and with lots of command, there is always something you can do. So it's just overall really enjoyable. And yeah, there you go. That's kind of why I like it. And facing off against my Swedes, you have the Crimean Khanate with a lot of Tatar warriors. Just scores and scores and scores of horsemen and horsemen with spears. Force point wise, there's a 3-point advantage to my guys, so we'll be rolling for some effects. The scenario, as I mentioned, is delay the enemy for 0. So we rolled cover the commander, panic, and march losses, which is pretty good because they're all meaningful effects which will definitely help my opponent out. And recon wise, my recon gets destroyed by the Tatars as expected, which means that they'll get some additional effects to apply to my forces. So this is what my guys look like as you've seen them in previous videos, except now there's just a lot more armor, so there's full 8 bases, fully armored guys, and a whole bunch of other raiders in support. And the Tatars are here, and just look at all those horses. That's a lot of cavalry coming down at me. Post deployment. So for this scenario, you have the 2 hills, which are worth 2 victory points each, and then I also get some additional victory points for marching my guys off the table edge as I'm trying to basically break through the enemy lines, and the enemy's trying to delay me. For my plan, what I'm thinking about is basically this: taking my veterans on the far right and running them straight at the board as quickly as I can to get them off the table, and using the rest of my raiders to basically screen, engage the Tatars, create that corridor so that my guys can advance in peace. Quick look at the Mirza, who is commanding with money, as money talks. Some Tatars on the right side with spears, getting ready to engage my Swedes, and the Tatars defending the hill, so these guys will be raining down bow fire at my advancing raiders who will be charging up the hill. And the brave lads of Sweden, all nicely ranked up. And here to the far right you can see my cowardly commander with his cowardly white die. We apply some of the other remaining effects, so my raiders with arquebuses actually get split with the reconnaissance effect, and then one of those units gets the panic effect or chaos. So they get disorganized and withdraw, and that's kind of not so good because these guys were supposed to run across the board and get off the table as quickly as you can, if you remember, so that's going to take a little bit of a delay. And then the march losses get applied to my veteran armored guys, so that's again not good for me because those are my best units, which means I lost one of the best bases that I have. But that's okay, there's still plenty of hitting power even with the 3 bases remaining. So, turn 1. I advance my guys, as you can see, basically just moving them up, and I can't do anything about the disorganized raiders at the bottom right because they just got disorganized beginning of this turn, so they just have to sit there and wait. In response, the Tatars move down, and on the right side you can actually see that those 6 spear-armed Tatars start with a charge order right off the bat. I think they had a forced march, so they were closer. Because now with 6 bases, when they charge my 3 armored raiders, they actually, with a numerical superiority, have a decent chance of winning that combat. So that's a very solid aggressive move on the Tatars' part. These guys are getting ready to move in, and smash, they do. but they do really badly in combat. They whiff all of their attacks. My raiders do very well. I kill a base and basically force them to withdraw disorganized. And being light cavalry, they withdraw their move, and so I can't pursue them, and so I just sit there, but I still basically broke that unit and withdrew them, or disorganized them, which is a really good start for me. And end of turn 1 looks like this. That's, oh yeah, before we go to turn 2, so end of turn 1, the ambush is sprung, and 3 more bases of Tartars with spears shows up in the light woods right to my right flank, and but they don't panic anything. My Swedes passed their morale test, so I'm good to go. They were totally expecting this. Turn 2. So on my side, I go aggressive. I want that hill, and I want those Tartars off the hill, so my best unit is now charging up the hill. It's short distance, they'll make it. And the other armored raiders can now engage those disorganized Tartars, because even though they're still outnumbered, they should beat them back easily. And I'm a little bit worried about those Tartars in the woods, so I do put my other raiders on defense just to keep my lines in order, and I don't want to move them up straight into their path. So I charge up the hill, and here's where my stands are placed. As you can see, they were kind of sliding down the hill, so this is their virtual position. And here I get ready to charge, and the Tartars take advantage of their break-off rule, and they try to break off. But because they're disorganized, they have to pass a morale test, which they fail, and they flee. So that unit is now running off the board. And the good news for my raiders is that because their enemy fled, they can withdraw. They can re-point their charge, and they charge left into the other unit. So I basically had a 2-for-1 because I was able to break that 5-based unit with them failing their morale test, and now I get a chance to fight another unit, so maybe I'll knock them out as well. And then the rest of my moves, and then the Tartars move in response. So on the left side, you can see a Tartar charge of 3 bases into my big block of raiders, which wasn't how it was supposed to happen. They got the charge order, and they actually wanted to charge into my raiders on the hill to put them on their flank, but just the way the distances worked, they had to charge this unit because they were closer. So that's what happened. And here, there's some ineffective fire from my caracoling defending raiders. I probably should have done something else with them because caracol at a long distance, basically never does anything. And here in combat, it's a slaughter. I take some hits from bowfire, but when I smash in, I kill 2 bases and easily break them. So they withdraw. And on the right behind the hill, the other raiders break the other Tartars with their charging with pistols, so they can keep charging, and they pursue. And just the way the bases worked out, they actually have an incidental charge into 2 of the other fleeing Tatar units. So they cause a bunch of hits, and what's important for me is they force another flee move, getting them out of the range of the hill. So now this one unit actually hit 3 different Tatar units in one turn, and had an amazing turn for just causing lots of panics. And the victorious armored raiders milling about on the hill. Okay, end of turn 2 is looks like this, and now you can see that the Tartars are actually beginning to worry because their whole center is fleeing. That's basically about 1/3 of their army is routing, and the other Tartars on the flanks will have to pick up the slack. Okay, beginning of turn 3, the Tartars put their orders on, and they decide to charge with their guys on the right into my armored raiders into their flank. And I can see this coming, so in response, what I do is I can't really do with those armored raiders themselves. They can't see the Tartars, so they can't countercharge. But the guys on the hill can. So they get a charge order, so I'll be able to support. And the good news for me is on the bottom right, my veterans rally, they get a move order, and now they can start motoring across the hill to get across the board to get off the table, which is good news. All right, moves. So the Tartars charge as predicted into my flank. Of course, I saw that coming, but And here's the really clever move on the Tatar side. I really liked what my opponent did here. He moved his other Tatar unit of 3 bases close to my veterans on the hill. And I don't have any command left to redirect their charge. So they have to charge left. They can't support their guys. They have to charge left. And those 3 Tatar bases, yeah, they'll lose the combat, but that's not a big deal. They have plenty of room to rally and regroup. But my other valuable armored ranger unit now is unsupported, fighting to its flank. So that's not good for me at all. And these guys are sitting on the hill, really want to support their buddies, but they can't. They've got to go left, and that's what they do. So they charge left. Remaining moves, I now get back to my plan of running off the table, so my 2 units of veterans on the right side just keep motoring up, and on the left my regular rangers just turn around to engage the Tatars that are behind their lines, because that's just annoying and never a good idea to let the Tatars get behind you. In combat, as expected, I break the guys on the left easily. Just I think with combat resolution or shooting and charging, they basically break off and flee. But on the other combat, it goes terribly for me. I lose 5 hits, so that's a full base plus 2 extra hits, fail my morale test, and break. And so these armored rangers are now fleeing. My other rangers fortunately make their panic test, and they actually are a great doorstop because the chasing Tatars have to charge them. They do incidental contact, smash into their flank, but with the numbers and combat resolution, that's not a problem, and they bounce. Without taking any hits, they basically lose the combat, fail the morale test, which is lucky for me, really unlucky for my opponent, and flee. And in the firing phase of turn 3, we exchange fire between the Raiders and the Tatars, and I lose a base, which is not good, but I luck out and score a hit, cause a panic test, which the Tatars fail, and get disorganized because of the effective fire rule. And so now that unit of 3 Tatars is disorganized deep behind my lines, which is really good because now they're not a threat. And here you go, end of turn 3, so the Tatars are still fleeing. Now one of my units is fleeing, but the rest of my guys are looking good. So at this point I'm still feeling really good about the game. But the Mirza is not. He is getting nervous. So beginning of turn 4, he spends all of his money command points to make some serious adjustments. So right off the bat, my beginning of turn 4, I try to rally my fleeing guys, and they fail. They're veterans, they might be disciplined, but they know they've had it, and they're just getting off the field. So my moves, oh, important things, yeah, so the Mirza actually did manage to rally 2 of his units, which is very good. And so now there's 2 Tatar units that are kind of back in the game. And in my moves, I move my armored raiders on the left up towards the other hill because I think that I can be able to take it. Yes, there's a couple of Tatar units there milling about, but I've got some support coming in, and those 3 guys on the hill shouldn't be a problem. On the left, I want to get those disorganized guys off the board, score some hits, so I just basically charge them. I have a huge advantage, not a problem. And on the far right, I keep pushing my guys towards the table edge because really that's what the scenario is about, not being delayed, so I'm trying to get off the board. Here, this combat goes the only way it could, which is I score a bunch of hits, they flee. And here you go, that's the end of turn 4. So turn 5, this is where things start getting interesting. The Tatars rally everything. So those 2 units that were fleeing at the top of the table, who were just about to go out of the game, get back right into it. So now suddenly there's a Tatar line that's reformed, and their flight became a feint flight officially. For my part, I decide to charge on the right because I have good odds there, and I do want to move those guys up, so charge is a good way to move your units forward. And a quick look at my armored raiders, who are now getting a little bit nervous about taking that hill, but still feel pretty good because they haven't suffered any losses, and they should be able to chase those guys off the hill. Here, I just want to get these guys off the board, so I push them further, and I charge here, which is definitely in my favor. These guys have spears, so I don't want them charging me. I want to charge them. these guys go up the hill because I was too far to charge, so I just need to close this distance and get in there as quickly as possible. Now in response, Tatars obviously get behind me, as they always do, which is not good. And in the combat here on the right side, it goes in my favor, so I lose a couple of hits, but kill a base, disorganize those guys, chase them once, so it's looking good. Now here in this part is where things go really sideways for me. So the Tatars have a very good shooting phase. They kill a base, my armor fails, and then what's worse, I fail my morale test and I withdraw disorganized. And I have to withdraw sideways because I'm withdrawing from the unit that caused more hits, which is not good. Now I'm sitting disorganized, surrounded by Tatars. Beginning of turn 6, and this is where things really go sideways for me. So you can see that my commander top right, and this is one of those things where it's the finer points of playing this game well. It's easy enough to move your commander so they're in command range, but the tricky part is moving your command so that they're in command range after all units move and charge, and I just misplaced them by a couple of centimeters. So after my veterans pursued on the top left, or sorry, top right, they moved right out of the command range, and so now they're sitting right there, can't take a move order, and they're just going to sit there. This is the last turn of the game, and instead of driving up the board, they're just going to sit there. And on the left side, what's even worse, my veterans don't rally. They're boosted by their commander, and it doesn't matter. They lost their discipline bonus with 3 bases, and they failed their roll, and they just sit there. And of course the Tatars smell weakness, they can taste their victory, and they're going for a charge. So in my moves, I get my guys off the table on the right side, so I got some bases off, which is great. And I withdraw with the disorganized guys backwards, but not far enough. The Tatars get ready, and they swoop in from 3 sides, and this combat goes the only way it could, which is total destruction of my unit, because they lose combat badly, have to flee, can't flee because they're surrounded, and they disappear. And here, these guys were just sitting there, couldn't move. They take some bow fire, lose 1 extra wound, which now kicks a base out, forces morale, which they fail, and they flee. So there you go. That's the end of the game, with both of us controlling 1 of the hills, and I did get 2 bases off the table on the far side, but I just lost that massive unit in the very last turn in the top left side of the map. So the turning points, for me, it's obviously here when I couldn't rally these guys. They were disorganized, and basically 4 bases of raiders with a commander get swarmed and killed, and yeah, that's just all bad. That's basically when the scenario went totally sideways for me. And the what if, so out of the whole game, where was the one thing that I think I could have done differently or better, or just otherwise? And I go back to this point. This is turn 4 beginning, so it's middle of the game, and this is when the Tatar center has broken. They're basically fleeing. I'm feeling pretty good about the game, and I start kill chasing, and this is one of those bad habits from other wargaming systems where I just wanted to kill some more bases and score some points, but of course that's kind of pointless in this scenario because it's all about the objectives. And so instead of charging those guys, chasing them, I should have moved up, because look where the Mirzar is. He's nowhere near those disorganized Tatars. They're not going to rally. There's basically no way for them to rally, which means they're out of the game, and spending any more of my precious resources on them is a complete waste. Had I turned my raiders around and moved them together supporting my armored raiders, I would have been able to take that hill almost certainly and kept my advantage. But by doing this, I basically split my forces, threw my advantage away, and allowed my opponent to cleverly play his Tatars, outmaneuver me, and go get back into a draw position from a complete overwhelming victory on my side. Okay, so let's tally it up. Losses are as follows. My Swedes get slaughtered with that 4 bases lost at the very end and the major, and the Tatars take some pretty heavy losses as well. Now, scenario-wise, we both get a hill. I get 2 bases off the table for 1 point, so I'm 1 point up on the scenario, but I take very heavy losses, 2 heavy losses, so I lose 2 points there. And so it's really 1-2 for the Tartars, which is still a draw. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it. See you next time on Bite-Sized Bat Reps.